Let's go into our program back. We have now the second session of today. And first we'll begin with Philip Wayne with the title of The Living Dead, the Augmentation of Graveyards, Memorials and Monuments. Please, go ahead, Philip.
Okay, my name is Phil Wayne. I'm from Nottingham Trent University here in England. And I said I'm going to talk to you briefly about using augmented reality to augment what we see in the way of headstones and other physical artefacts that we often associate with memory and remembering people and things. So let me just talk about briefly why augmented reality and then give you some examples of it, okay? Because it kind of works best when you see it. A very brief reminder of where this came from for people who didn't see me speak at Durham, so this is why I'm going over just a couple of things before I'm going on to new things. We know that actual remembrance is very important to people and how we remember things. Sometimes, you know, we've got particular associations, so headstones are a classic one, but sometimes there are other physical objects that remind us of people. Photographs are a great technology for remembering things. Often we don't think of photographs as technology, but because they are a technology, okay? And a great way to sometimes, if you see a photograph of someone, it's a fantastic way to remember aspects of those people. I got interested in this because a lot of the headstones don't have photographs of people on. And I found myself thinking, would it be nice to see what the people who are buried there actually look like? Okay? Now, some headstones do have photographs these days, but not all do. And certainly my parents didn't have one. So it began from a kind of personal thing, thinking, it'd be nice to have a photograph of them on there. We can't put one on the headstone for various reasons. But perhaps there's another way around it. And perhaps I'd like to share that image of them with other people who come along. And that's where I began to think, well, perhaps if I used an augmented reality app, an app that lets me overlay digital artifacts onto physical images, that would be the way forward. So I began by thinking about headstones as a kind of a personal way to take things forward, but we can also apply it to kind of cenotaphs, classic public memorials, but also things like tourist plaques, statues and various other things, as I'll show you some examples of. The thing with AR as well, it means that we can, depending on the app that you're using, we can overlay images, and sometimes we can overlay video clips that gives us sound and various things. Different apps work in different ways. Some trigger by looking at an image. They recognise the object they're looking at, and that goes, oh, I need to bring up the picture now. Some can also work by going, I've got a GPS coordinate here that says I must play this video clip now, I must play this audio clip because it's location aware. Okay? It sounds terribly complicated, and it would be if it wasn't for the fact that we're all walking around with mobile phones and iPads and things that have got all this stuff built in. Okay? So as end users, it's not quite as difficult as it sounds. So the one I'm using, the Raspberry, for example, will scan an image and it kind of creates a map of the image and it recognises it and it goes on from there. And that gives us our trigger. Let me just show you a couple. That's what people go to do. So I'm just use the iPad, okay? It's available for, like, you know, Android devices, Apple devices. I'm using the iPad simply because it's bigger and there are lots of you in a big group. So the very first one I tried to do was just one of my parents. And just to stress, this will work in situ. So if I go into the graveyard where the headstone is, this will work, okay? I'm using photographs here because I can't bring all the headstones to the event today. So here we go. So here's my parents. Oh, what do they look like, okay? Fingers crossed the technology can behave itself. Okay. Okay, and then I'll move around a little bit. If I move too far this way, I'll show these to people who are interested outside of it, and to show you that it's not like an, you know, this is my hand in the way of the camera now. So it's overlaying it and it's tracking where it's at. Okay. And from here, I thought, well, can we apply it to other things? And there's some military graves around the corner from where I work, so I also tried it with some of the graves. I've done quite a few, but I'm just showing you a couple of examples. So here's another one, for example, which is a VC winner again. You see, the image of the person who's buried here comes up, okay? And I'm not going to demonstrate it now just because my iPad's been a bit laggy on the network, but there is an option here, where you pull the images of, for example, historical figures, to put a hyperlink in, and you can connect it to a website so you can find more information. So those people, for example, who like, I'm jumping around a bit, blue plaques. London's got lots of blue plaques in, okay? Here we've got William Bligh, Commander of the Bounty. What did Captain Bligh look like, okay? Well, Let's have a look. Here I am, there's a lovely portrait of Captain Bligh, and I would have the option to make this a clickable image, click on it, and it would take me through to more information all about Captain Bligh, for example. I'll show you a couple more in a moment, and this is the nice thing about this, when you kind of see it, it's sometimes, when I try to explain to people, they don't get it. When you see it, it's like, it switches on, you get that moment. Now, the technology allows us to do this, just to briefly talk about this idea of kind of aura and presence as well, because a good question I got asked when I showed this at Durham, was people said, it's really interesting, but kind of where's the sociology behind it? We like what you're doing, okay? So I kind of went off and thought, yeah, it's a good question, that, actually. And I realised there's two things emerged from the literature as we go to look at it, two ideas. One is this idea of aura and presence, okay? So we know that many places have what we call an aura, or there's a special presence about it, and architects can help evoke that by how they design things and the psychology of the landscape and all this kind of thing that we're aware of. But also for us as well, as individuals, sometimes something has a lot of meaning, and that object might have no meaning for somebody else. But if we can then call up images or call up the audio, okay? For example, of a deceased parent who's talking to you, something that you've recorded, well, that's going to enhance that aura, that sense of presence, okay? So one idea was that augmented reality, whether it's on a personal level or it's national monuments or battlefields, can enhance that connection that we've got with it, okay? I'll flick through some of these slides, and these are just backups in case the AR played up. A more recent one I've done is, you've met my parents briefly, okay? Going back a generation, okay, I'll move around. Here we've got Archie and Maggie, okay? Arthur and Maggie, this is my mother's parents, if I just pull this up. And again, I'll just get it to catch it. There we are. Well, those lovely old kind of black and white images. Again, it's overlaid on this. If you went in the graveyard, this would work. So the nice thing is we can go back to existing memorials and we can choose to enhance them. The other thing is, it's not exclusive AR, okay? Because I've done this doesn't mean that somebody else can't come along and use a different overlay image should they choose to do so, okay? Because these apps have multiple channels and you can use multiple apps, which will lead us on to the idea of contested space shortly. Again, war graves are a classic one to do. There's lots of war records being released. There's lots of online databases that we can connect to for sociology and social history. In some instances, we've got kind of memorials that we might use as a trigger, a public memorial. And again, if I just use this very briefly, they could behave yourself. And it's going to, oh, here we go, good. Okay, so this one links to a video clip, which is just, it's a montage of images from that particular graveyard and some of the headstones that I've been working with, okay? So again, I'm just going to cut it short, just because of the time. Somebody's going to wave at me very shortly and talk to me about moving on. So again, you know, this idea now that we can take this out from this original idea that I was driven by wanting to enhance my kind of connections with my family and improve what the family had in terms of headstone, moving it out into kind of looking at military headstones around the corner, and now moving it out opportunistically into where there's other things. And again, sometimes we've got memorials of people, so this is one in London, for example. It's a kind of lovely sculpture, but it doesn't do this person justice. So again, if I were to be a tourist and go along here now, I can call up the image of Violet Szabo, actual image, and again, I could link through now and read about history and her part in special operations, executive, etc., etc. So in terms of educational implications and academic implications, there's a lot that we can do here. And again, because it's not exclusive, different people can do different things. I won't pull it up, but we've got like Graham Greene, for example, so there are lots of plaques to famous people around the place, and again, it might be maybe pull up information about famous actors or famous screenwriters. It's really up to you what you would like to do with it. This also taps into this idea of the kind of sociology of social spaces. Classically we looked at society as a very structured thing, and increasingly in the literature we're looking at how there's kind of the flows and movements and how it's a much more dynamic thing. And again, it took me on to the work of like Castells and De Soto, quite a few high-profile people who are thinking about physical space and who owns space. People talk about this idea of strategic space and reclaiming space. Okay, there are public spaces, but actually the public don't own the public spaces. You know, somebody has a say about it. With memorials, there are certain limitations about what you can and can't do. Memorials are a good example of this. And again, one memorials are put up both as a memory to what's gone before, but sometimes as a signifier, as an intention of what's happening at the time and things to come. There's often political statements imbued in that, for example, with war memorials. And again, sometimes people will try and reclaim them. War memorials are a good example of contested space. Here we've got a young man hanging off the cenotaph, okay, which is the National War Memorial here in England. Okay, it's to the glorious dead, which is a contentious phrase, given, well, especially when it's put up, it's still a contentious phrase. But that young man's hanging off, he's hanging off the Union Jack, he's swinging around, it's part of a kind of student fees riot. He's got a local connection to here, because it turned out that he was jailed at Kingston Crown Court, just a few metres from where we're all sitting now. We've got Kingston Crown Court, because in fact he's the son of Dave Gilmour, the Pink Floyd guitarist. I'm so pleased I've got Pink Floyd into this talk, okay? So, cenotaph hooligan, son of Pink Floyd star, okay? These are contested spaces, you know. He was off his head, he was off his tits on drugs. That was, I can say that was part of his defence, okay? That was part of his defence, he's gone into rehab, he's done time, blah, blah, blah. But it's an example of memorials as a contested space. Another example of memorials as a contested space. Recently, some young Russian women were arrested, given a limited amount of time, but were arrested because they used in a video clip, there's a war memorial there in the background. And I have to say, it's like a sci-fi setting, it's fantastic. I can see the attraction if I was a videographer, I wanted to use that as a background, okay? But the authorities said that this was deviant acts, etc., because these girls were, I say girls, the word girls to be raised. They were twerking, they were acting sexual. I'll just see if I can get the clip very quickly, see if it goes through or not. Just give you 2 seconds of it. There we go. Flexibility. That's a full and so it goes on, okay? So I can see the attraction, you know, it's like something from Alien or something, that kind of spaceship that's sat there. But actually it's a memorial to Russian Marines who landed on that part of the sea in the war, in the Second World War, okay? So you can see why the authorities have got kind of their set of views about how that space should be used, but other people may view it in different ways. So memorials are a kind of really obvious thing, but it could also apply to public parks and other spaces, not just war memorials. I use that as a good example. And talking of kind of public-private spaces, and one way that I'm just beginning to take it forward is thinking about, well, if I'm using a visual image as a trigger, why not use something like a tattoo, for example? Okay? I've seen sometimes people have got memorial tattoos, especially to dead children, okay? And these can be lovely, but I've also seen some that are terrible, okay? They've had the likeness of the child done, and it's not worked out. And there's that dreadful tattoo. And I thought, well, why not have some kind of nice classic tattoo design, right? And your secret is that when somebody holds a phone up to it, then a picture of your child appears, then a picture of your parents appear, then a picture of whatever you've chosen to do appear, okay? Hopefully later today, I'll show you the tattoo trick running. I had a technical problem there, see, I don't have tattoos, so I had some problem with my temporary tattoos earlier, but I'll try and show you it this evening or tomorrow. And again, it's a great thing where suddenly, again, it's such, I'm thinking, well, what's public space, what's private space? You know, I look at tattoos sometimes on people, and sometimes tattoos they're private, because of where they're put normally. Other times they're public, and I'm like, well, I can see those tattoos, okay, and I can comment on them. But especially where it's memorial ones, again, if you've got an AR overload, it gives you the chance you can change the image, it's secret unless you want to share it, etc., etc. So I think that augmented reality can move beyond that initial thing of looking at headstones and stuff, to looking at other physical artefacts, including tattoos, and all kinds of memorials and spaces. And because of the GPS, we can also have kind of spaces where there isn't anything that could also still be memorial space digitally. So for example, some people have been buried now in places where it's kind of green fields, it's green environmental burials, there are no set headstones or anything, but we could have a set of coordinates, a GPS boundary that says that when you walk into it, it begins to trigger your favourite, the music that you associate. It begins to trigger that little snatches of conversation that we've got, okay? So again, the test one of the two is it brought up an image of me and my mother for my, I think, my 21st birthday. It's a lovely picture of me and a lovely picture of my mum. And I had a little snippet of sound from her talking from a different thing. It was actually a Christmas video from years ago, but it didn't matter because suddenly there was the image, I could hear her again. Take it away, it's private. That's for me to share with people if I choose to do so. So I think this has got a lot of promise, okay? And again, in terms of the technology, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a phone, this thing's getting more and more ubiquitous. And again, with things like Google's web browser, they've got a project out at the moment to bring augmented reality built into things like web browsers. So whilst I'm occasionally cursing and swearing at this stuff because it's not working as it should do, this stuff is getting more and more common, okay? So there are more and more options for us to do it, it's getting easier to do. But again, you know, it might raise some issues, okay? So it's great insofar as we could have a multiplicity of spaces, so we could go to a memorial, wherever it is, and we could overlay it with what we want. We could overlay it with images, with sound, with information hyperlinks. And that's a fantastic thing. But that's not to say that it wouldn't be open to abuse. You know, I can imagine that some people might have an overlay where there's, for example, a memorial to victims of the Holocaust or something, and I've got a giant rotating glowing swastika raining bombs down on the memorial if I hold my phone up, okay? So we are going to encounter antisocial uses for this, but overwhelmingly, I think this opens up lots of possibilities for very positive things in how the people at this kind of event can bring in things from their different disciplinary areas and think about how would I like to use this technology. So overall, it's getting easy to use. The technology we need is getting more and more ubiquitous. You know, we're walking around with it anyway. One of the reasons I wanted to use a publicly available free app was that I wanted it to be something that when I've got a bit more on with the project, I put out a toolkit so anyone can download like a set of instructions and a video and they can replicate their own thing. It doesn't require specialist teams of computer scientists or anything, which is what's been done in the past at Open Cemetery and various other things. So I'm not the first to augment stuff in cemeteries, but they've used specialist teams. I thought, actually, let's go the other way around. Let's take existing apps so that we can pour it out there to people. And again, you know, it's lots of, again, looking forward in terms of this, you know, many of today's children are being filmed and photographed from birth. You know, we've got BBC 3 people coming on tomorrow. So the raw material that we need for this kind of thing will become increasingly common, okay? So it might be that for my parents' generation that I've got photographs of them, and for grandparents, and other materials may be more scarce, but that's less of a problem as we look forward because more and more stuff is captured all the time. And again, I was trying to think about how all this comes together, and I was thinking about different terms, and I came up with the phrase immersive mnemonics because it was a way of helping to remember things. It's a device to help us remember and to connect. And it's increasingly immersive in terms of we've got images or we've got headphones on, we're playing sounds and stuff as well. And I like that phrase. When I Googled it, nothing came up. I keep Googling it on a regular basis and nothing's coming up. So for the moment, I'm going to stick with that phrase while I continue to try and develop and look at suggestions, and hopefully people will talk to me with some ideas as well about how to take this forward around augmented reality and memory and presence and aura and contested spaces. Thank you all very much.